Chapter 14, Gitana and Plum. Sorry I kept secrets from you and almost got you killed. It was late morning of the next day when Gitana and her friends saw land. After almost being swallowed up by Gummy Mountains and a pirate invasion of their boat, Gitana wondered if they would actually see land again, let alone the land of Aser. But here she was, standing safely on the seashore at the outer reaches of the kingdom. Admiral Seal and his subordinate seals had proven themselves top-notch. Not only had the seals saved the kids' lives, they found Captain Jocelyn's boat, gathered the rest of the kids' belongings, and escorted the offenders to be tried and punished by a court of law-abiding merpeople. Admiral Seal alone stayed with Jocelyn's boat until they were safely on land, then went back to meet his Navy unit at their base not far from where they had rescued Gitana and her friends. Admiral Seal was not a talkative guy, but he did ask the kids to say hello to General Mazin when you get to Aser before leaving. As they watched the Admiral swim toward the horizon, they saw one lone flipper wave goodbye in the distance. Gitana, Tulip, and Bright bid Captain Jocelyn farewell, then fell down onto the beach, exhausted. Jocelyn, feeling guilty for sailing them into pirate-infested waters, had tried to give their money back, but they refused since she had gotten them to their destination in the end. They did accept a basket of food from Jocelyn, so she would feel less guilty, and were glad because they were all starving by the time they hit the beach. Tulip opened it up right away. To Gitana's delight, Jocelyn had packed peanut butter, crackers, raw carrots and celery, and bananas. Tulip and Bright looked nervously at the items until they found gingerbread cookies and licorice. After eating, they got back to business. Gitana took out their battered but still intact map and confirmed that Central Aser was one more day's walk. Gitana was eager to get started, but she saw Tulip and Bright looked exhausted. Gitana thought she could use a rest too, so they planned a little nap before getting started. It took no time at all to doze off. As she fell into her afternoon slumber, dreams and reality merged. She found herself on the beach not with Tulip and Bright, but her grandmother. Her grandma was giving her instructions on how to fly, lifting Gitana's arms up into a wide V. "Now run," her grandma urged. Gitana ran and jumped, diving face first into the sand. "Try again," her grandmother repeatedly commanded, with Gitana meeting the same end every time. After the 7th nosedive, Gitana jumped up, frustrated and angry. "Why are you making me act like a dragon? I can't do it!" Her grandmother picked her up, then demonstrated the proper technique herself, running and gliding smoothly upward. Grandma was now a beautiful pink dragon with shiny, darker pink scales and fiery blue eyes. "Now you try," Grandma beckoned. But now Gitana could neither move nor speak. "Gitana!" Grandma called impatiently from above, not knowing Gitana was frozen. "Gitana!" "I can't!" Gitana yelled, suddenly finding her voice. "Gitana! Gitana!" Her grandmother's voice pitched higher. "Gitana!" Gitana's eyes flew open to find Tulip standing over her, rigorously shaking her. "What?" Gitana did not know what was happening. "Are you okay?" Tulip asked, worry written all over her face. "I've been trying to wake you up for 5 minutes." Gitana sat up, shaking her head to empty the stressful dream from her brain. "Yeah, sorry, I was having a weird dream." Tulip frowned. "Okay, well, we napped for more than an hour. I think it's time to get going if we want to reach Aser by tomorrow morning." Gitana agreed. "Sure, let's go." They all packed up and stashed everything in their bags. The 3 began walking again, this time a little faster than the previous days. Now that they were getting close, they became more impatient to get to Aser. Tulip and Bright had their parents on their mind. They could both see on the other's face worry they might not find their parents in Aser. Gitana's mind settled on thoughts about her own family. She wondered what was happening in Bloom and what form of help she would find in Aser. Her mother had said so little. Why would the governor of Aser want to help them, and what help would she offer? What if the governor did not want to help? What if Gitana could not even find the governor? The one thing she avoided thinking about was the lies they may have told her. The 3 walked with a cloud of anxiety over their heads. As they traveled, the sandy beach and lovely breeze soon gave way to serene green meadows, which a few hours later gave way to thick yellow fields of tall weed stalks and brush to trudge through. By then, the sun was high and hazy, radiating heat while bugs buzzed on and around them. Pieces of Gitana's hair clung to the sweat on her forehead, which she brushed away with hands dirtied by pushing aside rows of vegetation. Tulip and Bright were similarly uncomfortable, but no one complained for fear of making the trek worse for the others. Noticing Bright and Gitana becoming increasingly strained, Tulip decided a distraction was in order. Plus, she remained very curious. So, Gitana, about what happened on the boat when you ran at the pirates. Gitana was dreading this moment. She took a deep breath. Yes, I know, I'm sorry. No, Tulip said quickly, you have nothing to be sorry for. You were trying to help. I'm just wondering what triggers you to change into a dragon. Bright's ears pricked up. He had been waiting for this conversation. I don't know, Gitana replied. I don't remember changing. But you remember what happened before you changed at least 2 times, right? It sounds like you changed when you were falling down to Candiego, offered Bright. And you changed again when we were being sucked into the Gummy Mountains. So maybe you change when your life is in danger. That's what I was thinking, agreed Tulip. Except, her voice trailed off. Except I wasn't able to change when we were thrown off Jocelyn's boat, sighed Gitana. Maybe it wasn't really a life or death situation, Tulip guessed. They threw us overboard wearing our life preservers. Yes, but if the captain hadn't had the flares and the seals hadn't come to us, we would have frozen to death in a few hours. Tulip shot a warning look at Bright to be more careful about what he was saying. Gitana was already feeling bad. Bright got the message. But I bet you would have gone dragon and saved us before we froze, he said as confidently as he could. But Gitana was not sure of herself at all. Maybe you could train yourself to turn, offered Bright. Why would I do that? Asked Gitana, trying to hide her fear and frustration. We're close to Aser. When we get there, the governor of Aser will help us. The adults will help us save my kingdom and find your parents. I don't know about you guys, but I want to go back to being a kid. You never know, Tulip said quietly. How would I even train? Gitana asked defensively. And who would train me? My parents must have known about this and never told me. Maybe they hoped I'd grow out of it. You have a point. Tulip hoped Gitana was right for her sake. She could only imagine how confused Gitana was right now. Pressuring her about changing was probably unfair. You're right, Gitana, she said soothingly. After we get to Aser, you won't be in any more situations in which you'd need to change. Hopefully, Tulip said to herself. Still, Tulip guessed that Gitana had turned more than just 2 times, so there were likely other situations in which she had become a dragon. But they were all hot and tired, and she didn't want to give Gitana one more thing to worry about. Unfortunately, Bright failed to read Tulip's mind. You could find someone to help you train, Bright argued. I can't think of any other creatures that can breathe fire, but there are a lot of creatures that can fly. Maybe you can find someone who knows how to fly to help you out with at least that part of the dragon training. Gitana was only half listening at this point. So do you know anyone who can fly? Bright pushed. Gitana wished he would drop the subject. No, of course I don't know anyone who can fly, she grumbled, trudging through the field a little faster to put distance between herself and Bright. But I do know someone with magical powers, she thought silently of Plum. She missed her and wondered if she was at the castle with her parents and Quarterly. She had been out for a ride with Burke that morning, so she might have escaped. Hopefully she was okay wherever she was. Thankfully, there was a clearing ahead with short grasses and flowers as far as her eyes could see. No tall grass or brush to struggle through. But there was more than just a blessed meadow in her view. What is that? She asked aloud, although Bright and Tulip were too far back to hear. Something blue and sparkly was floating in the air above the clearing. She walked faster, afraid to lose it. Haphazardly pushing back weeds, she tried to jog. There was something familiar about that sparkle, and she wanted to see it up close. Just then the blue sparkle turned around and looked in her direction. She thought she saw a look of recognition flash across its face, or rather his face. This was not just a sparkle, it was a spark. Leon! Leon! she yelled excitedly, almost tripping as she attempted to run through the remaining brush. The spark squinted, then abruptly smiled widely. Gitana! He flew toward her, and they met at the edge of the field. Gitana stretched out her hands and lightly squeezed him as Leon glowed brightly. I can't believe this, Gitana gushed. I haven't seen you in such a long time, and you're here. Her joy was as immense as the Owenly sea. I know, isn't this crazy? I'm so happy to see you. The two friends momentarily forgot their travel companions as they each explained to the other why they were there. They were dumbfounded when they realized they were both on their way to Aser. Wow, they said in unison, still shaking their heads in disbelief. Bright cleared his throat. Oh, Gitana remembered her friends. I'm sorry. Tulip, Bright. This is my friend Leon. He is a spark who lives in a forest about a half-day's journey from Bloom. Leon, these are my friends, Tulip and Bright. We've been traveling together from a town called Candiego. Leon had not heard of Candiego, but he was eager to hear about Gitana's new friends who looked like no humans he had ever seen. Tulip and Bright were also curious about Leon. They had never seen a spark before and wondered how he and Gitana had become friends. Leon, in turn, introduced Cambria, Valley, and Kylie, who sparkled politely at them. This is my friend Gitana. We met when I was just a little spark. I was playing with a couple friends at the edge of the forest when we got caught in a windstorm and blew into Bloom. We were forced to take shelter in Bloom's woods that night. Gitana found us the next morning and brought us food and drinks for the trip home. We ended up staying and playing in the woods for hours until her father came to find her. Gitana smiled at Leon's friends and at the memory of her meeting with Leon. Please say hello to Arnold and Willis for me. Oh, I almost forgot. We have two friends from Bloom with us. Gitana was startled, curious to know who else had escaped the invasion. Just a second. Leon pulled G away from worrying over the person in the wagon. This is G. G's eyes widened as he recognized the girl he had sent over the cliff. He was thrilled to see her looking well and very much alive. Gitana recognized him immediately. You're the watchman's son, she exclaimed. Aren't you in my sister Plum's class? Do you know what's happening in Bloom? Distracted, Leon interrupted. The other one is sleeping here, Gitana. G, his eyes still wide as saucers, nudged Plum awake. Plum raised herself slowly, her eyes half open as she dragged herself out of her slumber. Gitana, Leon said, gesturing to the sleepyhead. This is Plum. Plum? Gitana shrieked as she sprung at her sister. Plum! Plum! Gitana almost knocked Leon out of the air to get to the wagon. Plum had just woken up, and now her sister was squeezing the life out of her. Plum thought she must be dreaming, but the dream was getting awfully aggressive. Gitana? She whispered as she came to her senses. Gitana! She said it loudly this time. Yes! Gitana yelled, hugging her even tighter. Gitana! Now they were both squeezing the life out of each other as the others looked on. Only G seemed to understand what was happening. Plum was still clutching Gitana's arm 4 hours later. Introductions and explanations had been made, and they were all on their way to Aser. While Plum and Gitana walked a few steps behind the group, the others were getting to know each other, sharing the trials and tribulations of their journeys thus far. Leon regaled everyone with his story of how the sparks had zapped the wild pigs away while giving G credit for covering Plum when the pigs went on attack. Bright, in turn, explained how he had found Gitana and carried her to his house. G almost brought up how he was responsible for sending Gitana to Candiego before realizing he would be giving away Plum's secret abilities. Tulip dramatically narrated their near-death experience with the mer pirates, while the sparks twinkled in suspense. Bright overheard and added, You should tell them about the melted Gummy mountains and how Gitana tried to charge the pirates. Bright slapped his right hand over his mouth when he saw Tulip's face. Everyone went silent. G guessed Bright was about to reveal a secret while the sparks looked at each other, questioning why the others had stopped. What happened with the Gummy mountains and the pirates? Valley asked. Kylie elbowed her, seeing the others' discomfort. You know what? I'm sorry. Bright tried to fix his error. I was actually about to make fun of Gitana for trying to fight off the pirates, but it wasn't very funny. Just scary, actually. Gitana and Plum walked up to hear the last part of the conversation. Gitana took a moment to consider what to say, then agreed. Yeah, I got pretty argumentative with the pirates, and we all ended up floating in the middle of the sea while the boat sailed away. The others laughed, imagining the mer pirates scenario, while knowing Gitana and her friends made it out safely in the end. Plum looked intently at Gitana, realizing Gitana was lying about something. Hey guys, let's keep going, she said as the others nodded and continued sharing stories. Plum pulled Gitana back from the others. We need to talk. Gitana complied, wondering what Plum knew. Plum took a deep breath. I need to tell you how you ended up falling off the cliff in Bloom. Gitana's eyes widened. How do you know about that? Plum frowned, afraid of how Gitana would take this. I'm the one who made you fall. Gitana looked at her blankly, not understanding her words. You were surrounded by soldiers, ready to shoot arrows at you. Do you remember that? Gitana nodded silently. And then your horse reared up and threw you off and over the cliff, right? Gitana nodded again. Well, you shot the arrow at my horse's legs, Gitana whispered, finally understanding. Actually, G shot the arrow, but I made him do it with my empathic abilities. He really didn't want to, she defended G, and he was mad at me for a long time before I made him understand. But I didn't tell him about your... Plum stopped. She almost said it, just like Bright. You didn't tell him I can turn into a dragon. Gitana stopped and looked at Plum squarely. So you knew, but kept it from me. How could you not tell me? Plum gulped. I'm sorry, Gitana. It was Mom and Dad. They didn't tell me, but I saw it happen a few years ago when we were on vacation. They told me not to tell you. Plum saw Gitana's face darken with anger as she quickened her pace. The beach vacation? Gitana stopped to ask. Yes, Plum nodded. Gitana began walking even faster. Gitana! Plum pulled Gitana back, her face pleading with Gitana to understand. You change when you are in danger or under severe stress. Mom and Dad were worried that just knowing about your ability would stress you and you'd turn into a dragon too often or even permanently. Plum's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry I kept secrets from you and almost got you killed, she whispered, looking down. Gitana's expression was softer when she turned around to face Plum. Look, I feel really angry right now and stupid for not knowing my own secret, Plum understood. I know there is no way you or our parents would ever hurt me, and I'm sure Mom and Dad did what they thought was best. Gitana took a deep breath. But I'm going to need some time to think about all this. Plum nodded. I don't blame you for sending me off the cliff. I'm not mad about that. Really? Plum sniffed. Gitana half smiled. You saved my life because there was no way those soldiers were going to let me live. Plum looked up at her big sister, surprised. I also don't blame you for not telling me. You were obeying our parents. But when this stuff in Bloom is over, I hope you all tell me everything. Poor little Plum looked so miserable, Gitana thought as she used her sleeve to wipe the tears from Plum's face. She wrapped an arm around Plum's neck. Gitana felt bewildered and angry with her parents, but Plum was not the person on whom to vent her feelings. Because her parents were not there, she would try to put away those feelings for now. Don't cry, Plum. Plum sniffed, grateful to have the weight of the guilt off her chest. Thank you, Gitana, she whispered, then asked loudly, But what do you have on your sleeve? Plum's nose crinkled in disgust. You got it on my face. She was right. Gitana had thoughtlessly rubbed dirt, grimy twigs, and possibly bug remnants from the field onto Plum's face, leaving so many muddy streaks she looked like a swamp monster. Gitana laughed. Plum tried to rub the mess off. I'm glad you find this funny, Plum huffed. I do. You look terrible. I'm glad your mood has improved, Plum remarked. Now I don't have to feel guilty for doing this. Plum proceeded to grab Gitana's arm and rub her sleeve on Gitana's own face. Gitana was caught off balance and grabbed Plum so both of them fell to the ground. Gitana squealed in protest, then rubbed her other arm on Plum's face and almost went for her hair before G stopped them. Hey, stop this! We'll be in Aser in less than an hour. Hey, stop this! We'll be in Aser in less than an hour. Do you think we'll get an audience with the governor looking like pigs playing in a trough? Plum and Gitana looked at G. So, you're the one who made me fall off a cliff, Gitana looked up menacingly while G stepped back in mock terror. Get him! Gitana and Plum jumped up, and seconds later, G's hair was suitable for a family of birds to take up residencies. Now who looks like a pig? Gitana laughed. Still you two, G shot back, brushing dirt and twigs out of his hair with his hands. Any guilt G still carried for sending Gitana over the cliff disappeared.